Hello, and welcome to the second of our IoT and AI showcase podcasts. I'm Bhavish Patel, and I head up the IoT and AI business unit here at Ingram Micro. Today, I'm joined by Albert Baker, co-founder of Denalto, and David Pugh, who's the manufacturing partnership lead at Digital Catapult. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for making the time to join us today. And indeed, thank you to all for listening in as well. In today's connected world with greater demands for operational efficiency, enhancing supply chain visibility and automated actions, enabling more immediate decisions can add significant value to organizations. Of course, the key assumptions here being that we're either adding to the top line revenue or reducing the baseline costs. This is where our consultancy practice focus is, in taking away the complexity of designing, of testing, and building IoT and AI ecosystems. We will be discussing the market drivers, focus verticals, debunk any kind of common assumptions, and identify how such IoT technology can resolve business challenges today. With that being said, let's begin. Thank you both for joining us today. Albert, can we have a brief introduction from yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me again. Nice to be here today. So Albert Baker is my name. I'm co-founder of Denalto. We're an Irish company. Essentially what we offer is a low-power IoT platform which unifies indoor and outdoor asset tracking and management. So essentially what we do is we enable businesses or enterprises, public and private, to use IoT and to leverage data to make a difference for them. So I think what we're going to focus on today is around tracking, location, and why this will be deployed by a business and what's the value and the ROI. So thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure, Albert. And David, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as well as the work you do at Digital Catapult?
Absolutely, and thanks. It's great to be here. So Digital Catapult is the UK's leading advanced digital technology innovation centre. And our role is to drive early adoption and make UK businesses more competitive and productive to help grow the UK economy. So we focus on a range of digital technologies. So this includes IoT and 5G, AI and machine learning, immersive technologies, and distributed systems. And my role as the manufacturing partnerships lead is to sit between these really exciting advanced digital technologies and traditional industry and help transition these technologies into real business cases and real value for manufacturing companies across the UK.
Oh, it's great. So it's great to have you with us, and I'm sure you'll be able to give us some great insights into the work we're doing and the discussion we'd like to have today. So let's start with what is IoT, and if everyone's heard about it, but let's just maybe in simple terms, let's walk our resellers through this. David, would you like to offer some thoughts here, please?
Yeah, of course. So IoT has been around for a very long time. It goes back really to the 70s, where the first connected vending machines were around. Coca-Cola were kind of one of the first companies to have a connected asset. But IoT today really is a change to your business model that is based on data. Being able to understand where things are, what things are doing without you having to be physically present next to the asset. And these are technologies and solutions that cause minimal disruption to business as usual, but provide insight to allow people to do what they do best and not have to focus on kind of some of the more mundane aspects of their jobs, and to improve your maintenance operations or to improve your efficiency within an environment.
Great. Okay. Thanks, David. I think we should just maybe bring some focus to what are the top 5 market drivers for organizations to invest in this technology. Albert, perhaps you can walk us across some of the key aspects here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've seen kind of recurring patterns, right, in the drivers for organizations to really invest here, put out solutions, try them, test them, and then see the benefits. And so there are kind of 5 that are popping up again and again. Cost savings, reducing waste, remaining compliant, So anything to do with regulatory requirements, generating revenue, and then enhancing efficiencies. So they're sort of they're common themes across any kind of digital transformation initiative, right, in a business. It's not, they're kind of common terms you hear a lot. But if we just look at some examples, for example, I actually took this from one of the digital Catapult initiatives where they engaged with two metal factories in the UK. One of them which had to shut 4 times a year to do a stock take just for finding stuff. And they estimated that they could save £2 million a year by tracking assets and inventory across their site. Globally alone, the National Security Council estimates that about $50 billion are lost annually due to cargo either being lost or stolen. About $22 billion of that in 2015 was to do with theft. So, not to overload with figures, but there are some real tangible benefits here. So saving costs, so really that's, reducing the amount of equipment you need, saving the amount of time that employees spend on finding assets on their day-to-day tasks, reducing waste, remaining compliant, generating revenue, so customer retention. If you can track assets across a business to really drive that. They're the ones that we're seeing again and again.
Good. And perhaps you can also walk us across or give us an overview of the technology and how easily it can be installed.
Yeah, sure. So what's happened really, and Dave gave a bit of history there in IoT, what happened traditionally is very, very high value assets will be tracked. So vehicles, these kind of powered assets where you put a GPS tracker into a expensive piece of equipment on a construction site, it would use a 3G or 4G network. And it made a lot of sense to put that 100-pound tracker in there and track that asset. Now, because of low power technologies and long range technologies, it's actually now possible to instrument the unpowered assets. Personnel tracking has become a lot more ubiquitous and possible. So low power wide area networks, which is an umbrella technology, you've got Sigfox, LoRa, narrowband IoT. They're all used on campus now in businesses to do lots of things, not just tracking. They measure energy, they measure the condition of machinery across the site. But the technology which we're bringing to bear in manufacturing, mining, and logistics, they're the 3 areas there where we've seen some traction, is a single platform that can address indoor and outdoor. So typically indoor, you may use Wi-Fi sniffing, you may use a Bluetooth tag, you may use RFID, and they're fine for indoor. Outdoor is typically GPS. Yeah. Ideally, if you can have one system, one platform that can do both, in that way the complexity reduces and the cost reduces. So this is now possible. There are blends coming through. Ultrawideband is quite a popular technology. That coupled with LoRa, and what we're doing is we're bringing these together in one solution to kind of help these businesses do that. Okay. So I hope that's enough on the tech. I can go deeper if you like.
No. I think that's good, and we will probably come back to it as we sort of delve a little bit deeper into it. So now that we've touched on technology, of course, briefly, can we just look into the verticals, if you like, and maybe I can start with yourself, Albert, and then we can have David also give us some inputs, right? So just share with us some experiences around the verticals that you've worked across, and where these kinds of solutions play themselves into in a very positive way.
Yeah, sure. So mining and agriculture, we've seen similar use cases here. It's an outdoor environment. A GPS tracker traditionally would be very, very power hungry. Therefore, it's necessary to recharge this tracker or to replace batteries and those kinds of things. So what we're doing actually outdoors is we're in an open pit mine and in an agricultural setting. Same solution. We're tracking personnel in the mine, and in the agricultural setting, it's actually cattle. We're using low power technologies in this captive location, which is outdoors, might be 5 square kilometers, and we're able to track that person or that asset across the area for up to 4 or 5 years. It's a dedicated network. It gives GPS-like accuracies, and the key point is that the tag or the tracker lasts for that number of years, which really is the kind of unique selling point there. That's outdoor, and then indoor. Typically in warehouses, you'll use Bluetooth. These are quite short-range networks traditionally, and they are evolving. But typically, you'll need a beacon, which is on the wall. It's an anchor, as they call it, or a gateway. They'll be every 30 or 50 meters. If you've got a large warehouse, that's quite a dense deployment. It's a lot of kit to manage and maintain over a number of years. What we're doing is we're using different technologies indoors with less infrastructure. So, 400 meters by 400 meters, typical for a warehouse. If you can use 5 or 10 anchors as opposed to 30 or 40, that's a much easier deployment, a quicker deployment, and again, a lower cost. So these low power, long range networks are coming to the fore that way.
No, I'm glad you covered that point in terms of the dense infrastructure which typically exists in warehouses with lots of lots of metal work in there too, right? Yeah, good. And is there any current projects that you're working on? I guess you covered that, right, with the mining and agricultural example, right? Already.
Yeah. So the mining and the agriculture one, they're the outdoor examples. They are live projects.
Okay, good.
Mining, obviously, Scandinavia is a big area for that. Indoor, it's typically around pallets, trolleys of goods. Pallets in pharmaceuticals is relevant. They need to either be in the refrigerated zone or the non-refrigerated zone.
Yeah.
And this is a key use case we've seen with one customer. And then the other thing indoors in the warehouse is around forklifts, and this type of equipment that's actually on lease by the company running these warehouses. If they can reduce the number of forklifts they need, so even just getting that insight about time of use. So over the last year, we spent 250K leasing out these forklifts, but we actually only utilized 80% of them. Those insights then can change the story from here.
Okay, no, that's good, and maybe we can touch on resource tracking if we have time. So pause on that one for now. David, if I can come to you, I know you definitely touched on the fact earlier when we were speaking that you're doing a lot of work where you are bridging the gap between this technology and the operational side of kind of manufacturing factories which are using traditional systems and bringing the two together. Can you just share some of your experiences, please?
Yeah, of course. So we've worked quite recently with a manufacturing company called Dyer Engineering, and they produce metal parts, and that's anything from a door frame all the way up to the fin of a ship. So any one day in their factory, they've got more than 1,000 different pallets with different types of metals on them that are moving through different manufacturing processes. Now, as you can imagine, if you need to find one specific part out of 1,000, you're literally looking for a needle in a haystack. So often kind of workers will have to spend 10, 15, even more than an hour looking for these parts. So what we were able to do is place trackers on the job cards that sit with these items that use Bluetooth technology, and we're able to give an accuracy of about 5 meters to where this asset is, and this was updated every 10 minutes. So they were getting as close to real time as is realistically useful information about where their assets were. And so they were not only able to understand where their assets were, and they could look up on their SCADA system and kind of type in the job number they're looking for, and it would bring up a map and show them where it is. But they're also able to get a few extra pieces of information. This is what I really like about asset tracking, is that there is the obvious ROI of you're finding where your things are, but there are lots of other, once you've got this data, there's lots you can build on. So by understanding how the different parts move through their factory, they're actually been able to optimize how the factory is set up to say, well, actually, all of our equipment is set up like this, but the journey that a part takes is different. So they've been able to move equipment to optimize the flow of parts through a factory. And they've also been able to get a huge productivity increase because their workers are not spending that time that would have traditionally been looking for products. And that would be several man days a month of people's time. And so they're able to increase their output as well as reduce the downtime. Now, another really interesting area is construction, especially on these big construction projects, looking at things like football stadiums and train lines, where you have a huge geographical area and lots of high value assets. So things like diggers, and being able to track those is really useful. But again, when you're installing a network and you're installing trackers, it's not a huge investment to add on more data. So one thing that a company have been doing in the UK is being able to track diggers around a construction site, but also using vibration sensors that are on the same device, understand when the device is, or when the digger is idle, when it's switched on but not active, and when it's actually active and working. So you can find out what the usage of these assets is like, and how often they're used, when, and then if you need one at any time, you can actually just pick up an iPad essentially and have a look and see, well, these 5 are being used, but these 3 in that corner are not, so we can go and get them. So there's a bigger return on investment than there necessarily seems to be with just the one use case of asset tracking. There's lots more that comes from having this data, and there's a lot more you can do with that data.
Yeah, no, I think that's you made a good point, and in fact, it just reminded me that it's not just about the tracking, as you say. Just understanding whether the digger is in actual use, or is it idling, right? Through the vibration sensors, tells you that, oh, it was idling for, let's say, an hour or so. That means that it's actually burning fuel, right? It's burning expensive diesel as well. And if you replicate that over the estate of these diggers that you have, that also represents saving. So yeah, good point. It's more than just the tracking, right? In that instance. If we just,
I think that's a key. Sorry to interrupt. I think that's a key point, because in these tags now, it's not just tracking. You will have temperature, vibration. They're all built into the one tag. So
yes,
just to make
correct.
clear, quite easy to get extra information as well as location. I think that's a good point.
Correct. Yeah. Good. So we've touched on the kind of technology there, and what we can have in terms of use cases. Can we just move on to pain points that organizations are facing, let's say, and on what makes the solution in question? What is the key differentiator with these types of solutions? I think we touched on them a little bit already in the previous question and answer, but maybe we can go a little bit deeper into it. Albert, do you want to just come in on this?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I suppose one of the classic ones is, automating this checking and recording of location and condition, like David said there. So, it's quite labor intensive and error prone. If you are, the classic clipboard, checking where stock is, how it's moving around, volume of items going on a conveyor belt, what part of the warehouse these things are they closer to the door for going out to shipment, or have they just come in? All of this is still done manually. So that's a classic kind of pain point that these technologies allow you to automate, which means you're digitizing the process. Like Dave was saying, you can get that information on an iPad or a mobile device. So that's one. Another one we've seen is battery life. So a lot of barriers around deploying these things is, okay, I'm going to put in network infrastructure on my site. I'm going to put tags on lots of my assets, but the battery's going to last 6 or 9 or 12 months. What do I do then? Do I need to pay this large maintenance contract for my supplier to come in and replace the tags, or replace the batteries, or recharge them? So it's really, really key that you can get long battery life. You can use low power networks. You don't want to, if you're deploying 100, 200, 500 tags, you don't want to be touching them again for a number of years. You want them to just be ticking away and doing their job. So pain point is around power.
Okay.
I have a couple more, but really just around poor insights. So, the forklift example was a good one, that time of use. So if you don't have the data, it's very difficult to optimize or create efficiencies around what assets you're using, especially those that you're leasing, you're paying for on a daily basis, but I don't know how much I'm using. And then the cost and complexity. So if you have multi-vendor, lots of different stranded systems, you have a tracking system to do just to track this set of assets in this corner. There's a completely different system over here outside in the shipyard or in the port. Tying those together, making it simpler and one. That's how you would address those.
Yeah, no, I think that's. I understand some of it, especially when you talk about forklifts. Some of the more expensive forklifts can be in the region of like £50,000, and even on a lease, you're paying like 10,000 a year. So if you've got a few of these and you've made decisions on those, and you're not quite utilizing them in the manner that you're supposed to, but utilizing them for the wrong things, then it's the wrong decision, and you keep making those because you don't have the data insights. David, do you have any particular example in terms of pain points and how these solutions can make a difference? I think you illustrated quite well in the previous question around the factories that you mentioned, the factory that you mentioned, as well as the digger example. Is there anything else that you've got to share?
So one thing that people that we've worked with have had a challenge with is understanding what technology they need. Now, asset tracking is quite a broad area. If you're tracking things
Yes.
around a factory, it's a very different proposition to tracking across a supply chain that's, goes all the way across Europe. If we think about Airbus, they're now doing asset tracking on all of their parts that feed into their final assembly line at Hamburg. So they're tracking from Wales, they're tracking from Spain and France all the way into Germany. That's a very different proposition to tracking on a construction site. So, and because there are so many different technologies, it's understanding what the right technology is for you. And there's no best technology. Different technologies suit different use cases. So it's really one of the most valuable things for a company that are looking at adopting these technologies is understanding what you need to track, where that asset's going to be, and what additional information you're going to need to make a decision on what type of technology that you're looking to use. And that really streamlines the whole process, is understanding what you need to track before you start. And that's more often than you think is a real pain point for companies that are looking to adopt these technologies.
Yeah. So no, thanks. And I know we've covered a fair bit around kind of indoor, outdoor, using LoRa and some of these other technologies. Can I just touch on kind of real-time location services, as in the accuracy, right? I know that we often talk about it, and we talk about it's a meter accurate, or is it 5 meter accurate, or is it 10 meter accurate? Where can we just touch on this? Maybe David or Albert, can you pick it up? David, you want to just try there?
Yeah. So obviously, different technologies have different accuracies. So the best accuracy that I've seen is a technology called ultrawideband technology, which can give you an accuracy of around 10 centimeters. The challenge is it's very power hungry and requires a lot of infrastructure to be installed. You compare this to GPS, which requires minimal infrastructure, or at least a lot less infrastructure, gives you an accuracy of around a meter to 5 meters. So the better accuracy, or the more accurate the accuracy, the more infrastructure is required, the more power hungry the device is. So again, it's about making a decision on what accuracy do we really need, and then being able to understand what technology can serve those goals.
Okay, no, that's a good point. And Albert, have you? I think you did mention before that we ultra wideband, which David just mentioned there. We have experience of that too, right?
Yeah. Ultra wideband actually has become very relevant since COVID-19.
Yeah.
And it's a very useful technology, for if you think of a wearable, like an employee with a wearable or a wristband, it can do proximity, whereas Bluetooth, if it's a 2 meter rule about social distancing, and you may have a large operation where your employees have to work differently now, post-COVID, ultra wideband is used in that scenario. Again, like, I think David's right in that, the technology has to fit the use case. If you don't need 10 centimeter accuracy, you'll use a different technology. But UWB is definitely, it's actually going to be on handsets very soon. So the iPhone and new Samsung devices. So there's, just to go back into it a little bit, classic tracking technologies will use signal strength from the tracker to the gateway. How strong is the signal? Okay, now I can determine how far away the tag is. These new technologies use timing, so time of flight, time difference of arrival. These are more resilient. So when you're indoor and you've got your large metal shelving like you'll have in a warehouse, using time of flight, they're more resilient against multipaths where your signal is going to be bouncing off valves and walls and those kinds of things. So.
Okay. Oh, good. I'm conscious of time, so let me just move on. Security standards. I think this is also quite an important thing to discuss, because it's kind of centered at the center of everything we do, really. So I think David, maybe you can share some experiences that you have in this area. How important is security, and what aspects do we need to bear in mind as we implement these kind of solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So security is a something that needs to be considered with any kind of technology deployment, and IoT is no different. And a lot of work is being done now in IoT security standards. So we've spoken about LoRaWAN earlier today, in LoRaWAN 2.4 gigahertz, and that has got kind of embedded security as part of it. It's 128-bit AES keys, which is kind of industry standard. Lots of other technologies as well. With Bluetooth, you'll have devices that have embedded security, same as Wi-Fi and ultra-wideband. And we're now at a point where the security is good enough. So we've worked with all three branches of the UK Frontline Command on asset tracking programs, and they've all adopted this. And as you can imagine, the security requirements for the armed forces are very high. So we're at a point now where the asset tracking hardware has embedded security. Depending on how you're storing this data, whether it's on premises or on the cloud, there is equivalent security standards there. But it's definitely something to check, but it shouldn't be a risk. You shouldn't consider it to be something that that should be a hurdle for you adopting this technology. The security now is just about where it needs to be, and it has been for probably a year or two now. And so asset tracking and using this technology is completely kind of safe, as long as you kind of make sure that the devices you use and the vendors that you're working with have addressed these security concerns.
Good. All right. Well, thanks for that, David, and thanks, Albert, as well. So I think I just want to try and bring things to a close. I'd just like to say that, look, Ingram Micro offers flexible, scalable IoT and AI solutions. We with a consultancy practice, what we're trying to do is unlock the capabilities of asset tracking across several verticals in industry. We do have a dedicated business unit that are here to support you in making the right choices to help you maximize the return from these IoT-led asset tracking solutions. So please contact us, and we can help you understand a bit more about how we can harness the capabilities of this platform that enable this low-powered asset and personnel tracking. Both, we discussed earlier, both this is indoor, outdoors, reduced infrastructure density, complexity, cost. There's a lot to, lot there, and we are here really to help you decipher what often appears to be complex, costly to research, test, deploy even, and qualify the ROI. But this is what we're here to do for you. So I'd like to thank our guests today, Albert and David. Thank you both for joining us today. We appreciate your time and sharing your insights. We'd like to thank you all for listening. Please reach out to your Ingram Micro account manager, or get in touch directly if you're looking to deploy asset tracking inside your business. This podcast will be available on our YouTube channel, so you can stay up to date with all things Ingram Micro, and you can catch up on previous episodes we did. One was on IoT-enabled sustainability, so we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Bhavesh.
Yeah, thank you.